Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Men and Sex. I'm your host, Mr. Wood. This podcast is all about normalizing some of the most taboo conversations. We're here to talk about sex. We're here to talk about intimacy, masturbation, porn, all the things that have been stuffed away and are hardly talked about. We're here to bring it forward. Today, I have an amazing guest, dear friend, someone I look up to that's taught me a lot. His name is Brenton Rueger. He's a builder, a coach that works with couples and individuals, a father, and he is a leader in MKP, which is the Mankind Project. We're going to talk a lot about that. Most of all, Brenton's my friend. Welcome to the show, Brenton.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it. It's great to be here, brother. It's an honor.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the listeners, when I moved to Charleston a few years ago, I very quickly got woven into the community there. One of the best things of being involved with an organization like the Mankind Project is being able to tap into men's groups all over the world. And as soon as I moved to the East Coast, I reached out to Brenton, I reached out to the local community, and they really took me in. One man, rented me a car for super cheap. I ended up living with Brenton, and all the time that I spent there, we became good friends, surfing and all that. But Brenton carries a ton of wisdom, a ton of knowledge, and we've got some deep discussions we want to talk about, specifically porn. But Brenton, let's just get started. What brought you into men's work originally?
Well, Ian, probably the toughest period of my life. I was married at a very young age. I got pregnant, the ripe age of 29. Unexpectedly, that thrust me into a marriage, and I had no idea how to be in a relationship. I truly didn't. At that time, my model of relationship was so dysfunctional that I thought the woman needed to be subservient, the woman needed to do what I said, yada yada, the whole spiel. And so that relationship, uh, my ex broke me wide open, and I thank her every day that she did. She made me realize my shit doesn't stink. She left me, she walked out, and that hurt so bad. The pain of that thrust me into there's got to be more. I've got to learn how to be in a relationship. I need to learn how to communicate. I need to learn how to manage this. I was never taught that. Of course, my parents did the best they could, right? I mean, they taught me what they learned. And that took me into yoga, a spiritual pursuit through yoga. Um, I enjoyed that, the physicality of that. And then my mentor at the time suggested me to go to this thing called the New Warrior Training Adventure. And at that time, I saw men's groups like probably many guys do. Like, what the f? Can we cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
like, like what the fuck? With a bunch of guys. I was just so tough and saw that as so weak. And so I went and did this training, and it was the first time in my life that I saw men relate with one another in a really healthy way. I saw powerful men showing up in my face, challenging me, but I felt the love behind that. And that weekend offered me a perspective that I had never seen before. And that made me want more. And so then I got involved in what's called an I group, an integration group, which comes after that weekend here in Charleston, which we still have like a 25-year-old long running men's group here that happens, and got involved with that. And that took me on a variety of different journeys, because what I realized was that the more I learned, the more there was to learn.
Mm, mm.
I'm like, holy crap, there's so much to learn. Not that I need to fix myself or that I'm never complete, but that I became very hungry to continue to learn. And then after a while, it became evident that it was time for me to share and to step into more service and coaching work. And so I started that path as well. And
Beautiful.
as well as building, as you said, I'm a builder. I've been a licensed contractor for about 27 years. That coaching has been something that has been deeply fulfilling for probably the last 8 to 10 years.
I
And
love when men in the personal development movements are out in the regular world too, in the construction world, working
Yeah,
with concrete, building houses. I find that bridge so fascinating. For me, I used to be a commercial fisherman in Alaska, so it's such an interesting dance
blue.
between worlds, that blue collar life.
Yeah,
One of the things that you
yeah.
said stuck out to me because we talked about this earlier, which was, you know, being tough, being young, being tough, being strong, being macho, whatever. And this kind of opinion in the collective that is, if men are getting together and talking, especially talking about their feelings, then that's weak, that's soft, that's feminine, that's whatever. And to this day, it fascinates me how that exists. And I continuously, curiously look at it. It's like,
Mm.
I truly believe that men in those positions of like feeling tough are thinking that, but it's got to predominantly be a cover up for not wanting to go there. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I think yes. So here's the thing that I see. So in building, structure is everything. Structural integrity. What do we build on? And so I see that way in life. Structure is important. And so I like to deliver knowledge and understanding in the most simple, accessible way that I can. And I think what's happened is we've had this merging of like a spiritual community that uses a lot of platitudes and language that that could be off-putting,
Open
and
your heart.
yeah, even collective,
Yeah.
things like that, and
Ooh, collective.
not to give you pushback. It's
No,
that
it's great.
I believe that when men have no concept of what it feels like to connect with other men, that we're not in a bar, we're not at a party, we're not at a social function or a fraternity, or those places where men truly get initiated into manhood, that they don't have a concept, so it's scary.
Mm.
And so the easiest thing I think for men to do is to push back and say that wouldn't be for me. Like I don't need a therapy group. And I'll tell you this, that I would say 9 out of the 10 men that I've invited over the past 20 some years to these men's groups are floored. Like, holy shit, you guys do some intense work here. And I've never seen anything like this. I had no idea this existed. So I think a lot of it is fear. And I think, yeah, a lot of it could be that we know we have a lot to navigate
Mm.
internally. We have a lot to unpack. We perhaps we don't communicate effectively. We don't know how to manage our emotions and be there for our partners and our communities in the way that we want to. And then I think that leads to, when I'm not in my purpose and I don't know myself, it leads to isolation. Well, then I'm just not going to go be part of those groups. I don't have anything to offer. Who am I to be there? I don't need that. And so that's why we see so much isolation. And I believe that's why we see what you spoke of earlier, a lot of addiction to porn, addiction to various substances, smoking weed, whatever it is. I have a fairly radical belief that I was sharing with you before we started, that I don't believe any of those things are the problem.
Right.
Our relationship with those things, that's the problem. I mean, that sounds very straightforward. But when men start to deal with what lies beneath the surface, and they deal with some of the hurt, the pain, they learn about how they were raised and how the structure of their life impacts their choices, those coping mechanisms seem to fade away very naturally. They don't have a need for those quick spikes of energy and cortisol that porn, I think that's what it is, that porn offers. It's not needed when they begin to dive inside and understand themselves on a very deep level and start to rewrite that DNA.
Yeah, it's simply, when you're talking about it, it's simply the most basic survival mechanisms, which are to move away from pain and towards pleasure. And, these substances, drugs, alcohol, porn, they're such easy ways for a moment to escape some sort of pain. whether it's loneliness, disconnection, shame, feeling not good enough, isolation. We're going to talk a lot about isolation on this podcast episode, and but it's like if that feeling is there for a moment and I've learned what I can go to ease that pain for a moment and feel some sort of something more than the pain, of
Yeah.
course my brain is going to like hardwire that in as important. And as
Yeah.
you said, I feel the same. I don't stand on a soapbox and wave my finger and just try to battle porn and talk about all how bad it is. And there's plenty of people doing that. But I similarly look at it as the medicine for really where the pain is,
Hmm.
the just like taking an Advil for the headache, it's like the thing to cover up the other thing.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's why we see so much, um, uh, what's the word? Relapsing when people start
Yeah.
doing something. Um, Sorry, I've had a full day, so my mind's a little full. I'm gonna have to
All good.
think. Because we're not addressing the underlying issue.
Right.
There's aspects, and I don't want to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
uh, negligent and say, yeah, all porn is great. There's some
Totally.
that's really harmful. I
Totally.
understand that,
Totally.
and I also don't want to say there's a one size fits all. That my pain may be that I'm unlovable. I'm not good enough, and so that gives me a sense of connection, of love. That it's a truly to me, it's a false sense. It's not a person in the physical. So any of these things can, and I don't want to say that we all have similar pains because that's to me what the lifetime of work is unraveling what it is that my wound, what are my wounds? We all have them. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
We all
mm.
have.
Yeah. What
That's
am
the
I?
nature of human beingness is there's a wound. No matter how great our upbringing was, there was a part of me that was fractured at a young age. And so in that's the work. And that's it takes a great deal of courage to step into any given group of people and expose ourselves and be vulnerable.
Yeah,
And
there's this really potent conversation going large scale, from men that I know in the personal development world, such as yourself, and large organizations. It's like this continual question, Mankind Project, Sacred Sons. I hear them both having this conversation, which is how do we entice men to come to these experiences? How do we say the things or show the things that is enough for a man to step through that blockade or that safety that is resistance to the unknown. A bunch of men getting together and, whatever languages were used that doesn't make any sense, like collective, like all these things. It's like, how do we paint a picture in a way that is enough for a man to cross over that threshold? And for me in particular, in this subject around porn, it's like it's even a higher threshold when we talk about sexuality. It's one thing to say to a man, "Hey, talk about your relationship to anger. Where's your sadness? What are you grieving? How are you in relationship right now?" But then to be like, "Hey, let's talk about your relationship to porn." That's like a whole other skill to say. Uh, there might be something here for you to look at as to why you're going to this habitually in the way that you are. Not dubbing it bad or wrong, but to say, to have curiosity, there's most likely something you can learn about yourself in looking at what am I going to, when am I going to it, why am I going to it, what am I really looking for? Like all of these curiosities to come from a place that's like so much more neutral. It is a skill, and that's part of this conversation is like, how do we do that?
You said a lot there. You've said a lot. So I want to start off with that piece of the Sacred Sons. I really respect that organization. I don't have a lot of familiarity with them. I know Adam and some of those guys at the leadership level had participated in the Mankind Project. And so there's so much respect. And I think there's a miss as well. When I look at some of their marketing and some of MKP doesn't really even market. That's more of a word of mouth kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I look at, say, Sacred Sons, and I see, and look at me, I've got tattoos all over my arms, but we see a certain demographic of men on those where they're tattooed and there's diversity, and that's beautiful. And I think we're missing 80 to 90% of the average Joe. Just showing guys in a business suit who just wear khakis, who or blue collar, out there with a reflective vest on. That's the demographic I believe we're missing. So how can we market to let them know, hey, you don't have to know all these catchphrases and buzzwords in this spiritual personal development growth community? Because I think those a lot of those words, many people who speak English speaking, miss them. Like, what does that even mean? What does consciousness even mean? What does doing the men's work even mean?
Totally. Totally.
I have a I trigger a little bit when I hear men's work because all we do has been taught to work. That's our
Totally.
so now we get to do more work. It's like it's so these words they do something to me, and so I would invite those organizations to consider their marketing and to not have all these guys with piercings and tattoos, but have those and do some marketing that just show an average Joe.
Yeah.
That's the 80% of the guys. And those are the guys I really want to reach, not the
Yeah.
guys who have done personal development work and have all the languaging down.
Right.
Um, and secondly, the thing is trust is earned.
Yeah.
For a man to want to expose himself and to share the deepest parts of himself, I realize in some cases that could take years for him
Mm.
to because we haven't been taught that. It's just the structure of we as we've evolved as men is to keep things in, to
Yeah.
push. We don't reveal it. We're weak, and that structure is still alive and well in many relationships where the man is expected to be this. I'm not saying all.
Hmm.
There's different structures for different relationships and different dynamics, but traditionally, the man needed to hold it all together and push that down. So to break that barrier, I think that takes trust and understanding of why I would want to do that because there's men that are going to support and challenge me and help me hold myself accountable. That's why.
I'm,
And it took me years to get to that point where I felt safe, comfortable enough to share the deepest parts of myself. And I
I'm,
believe that's the definition of love.
yeah. I'm curious, I've told my story on the podcast a few times around my experience in the Mankind Project and hearing a phrase, I've never told this to anyone in my life,
Mm.
and that I would continuously hear that phrase when a man was talking about sexuality. And that really stood out for me. And I know you've been a part of a lot of weekends with that organization. I'm curious some of the patterns you've seen when with men talking about sex, or what stood out for you when men get to talk about sex, because in a lot of these experiences it's not a lot of time that we get to talk about sex, but it's really powerful whenever we get to talk about sex.
Yeah, I think what stands out is the understanding that it is a natural, beautiful aspect of our humanity, being sexual human beings. Through history, we've been taught, well, it could be the church, it can be different influences that have taught us that sex is more taboo. And what I see a lot of the time, what I could speak to is the disconnection in relationships of people talking about their sexuality, their fantasy, what they want, why they want it, and the importance of putting effort into that, to maintaining that conscious effort. Like I'm putting effort into maintaining my home,
Mm,
uh, my grass. I want to put at least that or more effort into maintaining that connection with my partner, my husband, my wife, whatever that is. Because there's no limit to the amount of pleasure that we're allowed to feel as human beings.
mm,
There's no limit.
mm,
And there's nobody that can judge what is taboo, what is fantasy, what is right for you in that realm. And so it's a rich conversation. There's so much to talk about. But the thing is, people don't talk about it with one another. They're afraid. In some ways, that's because the relationship didn't start out based on truth.
Mm,
When you start a relationship based in truth, then truth begets truth, and you can talk about those things that are very meaningful. And some people grow and change through relationship, and it's important to have that space to talk about it. And that's the things we also, as you well know, talk about in our men's group is how to communicate with your partners, how to set up really safe and non-judgmental times to communicate those things.
mm,
My ex and I used to have a Sunday meeting where we'd get together every Sunday and we'd, light some sage and we'd have a little script of what we wanted to talk about and what was working in our life and sexuality, what's working, what's not working. And you do that every Sunday for a few months, the game changes. So much is revealed. And
mm,
I think it's important for people to learn how to navigate their own emotions so they can navigate that kind of conversation.
mm, mm. Yeah, so much of what we're talking about here is in connection to communication. And whether it's showing up to a men's organization or a men's event or in a relationship with our partner or porn, all of these things, a theme here is that through communication, something shifts.
Yes.
Something shifts through communication. And at one of the last events I was supporting at, I had a real realization around. I've just felt that when I am holding in stories to myself, it's almost as if there's a weight that comes with it. There's like a burden or there's a contraction or I could just sense in the experience. It was like, the things that I don't talk about end up being a weight that I'm carrying on my own. There's something interesting that happens when I go and share the story or say the thing. It's some weird alchemy that I don't even know. Uh, and in this time of technology, we're more connected than ever, but it seems to be even more isolation. There's porn, there's webcam girls and all types of people. There's AI people to date. And so it's like with technology and what's happening is perceived connection, but what's happening is even more isolation, it seems, and what is not appearing to be an evolution in communication and how we communicate our stories and not carry that weight alone.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the problem with all the technology, all the access to information. We're losing that, and I think we could, and I don't want to sound that pessimistic, is that we could lose that connection to life because it is a weight to hide. It requires energy to hide. If you're playing hide and seek, you have to run and go hide. So,
I love
to
that.
hide who I am takes energy. And and I think this speaks to what you just said, when I see the value of communicating and revealing the deepest parts of myself, I take that weight off. I shed that. I'm no longer held back by whatever stories I run. I'm liberated. I can be me. Those who love me love me. Those who don't. And I really believe that that has to be done in relationship, in connection with others, especially with our significant others. I mean, I don't see any other vehicle that has propelled my life forward than relationship, intimate, committed relationship. To me, that's the highest spiritual practice. And so, if men could take some of the time, and I speak to men, but I think it goes men
Yeah.
and women, but
Yeah.
we're fishing mostly about men.
Yeah.
Um, could do the work of saying, okay, I want to be aware of how much screen time I have, how connected to technology I am, what I do in my life versus how much I connect with others in the flesh. I think that would be a wonderful practice in and of itself. If men were willing to just reconcile that and see, because I think we'd be frightened at how little connection we experience versus how much tech we experience on a day-to-day basis anymore.
This is a beautiful thread to porn as well, because what young men are facing today is that their first experiences of intimacy are predominantly screens. The majority, when the average age is like 11 years old or something now for being exposed to porn. It's like most kids are still like holding hands on the dance floor, and hoping to get a hug at that age, but then
Yeah.
simultaneously being exposed to the things that they're being exposed to on screens. And it's so much easier to access it. I don't have to face my insecurities to do it. And so, yeah, what you're talking about here is really powerful in thinking about what I think a lot of young men are facing today, which is what was normal for them was the relationship to be predominantly on screens for many of them.
Hmm.
And that's just been the norm from the beginning. And without conversation of saying, hey, there may be unintended impacts from the way that we've normalized this and haven't spoken to it that may ripple into the rest of our lives where we are used to having an intimate connection with a screen more so than people.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we identify the issues, it's important to offer techniques to navigate those things. So I have a 13-year-old son, and I just spoke about him. And it blows my mind what 11, 12, 13-year-old boys, I would imagine girls as well. I have a 23-year-old daughter, so she didn't have a phone at 13, are exposed to,
Yeah.
what they have access to that they should not have access to. And I think we know that's true. But what I've created with my son is an environment where, and I have to catch myself, that he can bring anything to me that he's curious about. And I'm not going to go,
Wow.
where did you learn that? How did you hear that? What the F is going on? I could take a deep breath. I can navigate my own internal chemistry and what's going on for me and say, okay, dang, what do you want to know? What'd that bring up for you? So, because I can't do anything about the technology. I can't build a wall around him. It's just impossible. We're entering into a whole new world. So, offering our kids a place where talking about sex, that's the topic we're talking about, you and I here,
Yeah.
is okay. It's normal. Masturbation, whatever he's learning about and wanting to know,
Totally.
I have those conversations with my parents. I just don't think they knew how to navigate that. So they just were like, I mean, my mom would walk out of the bathroom, like, cover her body, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? So I was taught that nudity had to be very private and all of these
Totally.
things. And I want to create a completely different environment. And I invite parents that have children. This thing comes back to communication. How can I not? How can I create boundaries for my son and instill values into him without controlling his environment and controlling the way he needs to think? And that's a lot of letting go of control. It's a lot of not imposing my will onto him and who I think he should be. And I know you and I probably align in that regard. I want my child to be who he is with great values and manners and respect for others and their choices. He asks a lot about uh, LGBTQ community and trans,
Whoa.
seeing that. And we're in Charleston, South Carolina, and there's pockets that are not the most inclusive, and there's pockets that are. And I want him to understand, to be respectful to everybody's choices and who they are and who they want to be and how they want to live their life, and to be an advocate for that, and to stand apart from the crowd if he hears his little buddies making fun of somebody, to feel good enough to say, hey, that's not nice to say about people, and to instill those values in him while he's being exposed to so much technology. I don't think it's a lost cause like many parents do. So
Right.
they either all or nothing. No, you're not doing phones. You're not doing this. And it's like, so then the kid's going to be 16 and get a phone and be like, holy shit, like there's a whole world. And then that's kind of
Yeah.
uh, catastrophic in its own way. So yeah, it boils down to communication, but I also I take a fairly radical approach of sharing with my son because he's even asked me what porn is, and
Yeah.
that porn isn't inherently bad. It is where two consenting adults are sharing pleasure and love, and it's videoed and shared with other people so they can learn, so they can perhaps use it to enhance their life in some way. And but it also can be addictive, and it can fill voids that don't need to be filled with that. And
Mm,
so have those conversations because I think he's kids nowadays are much smarter than we give them credit for.
yeah.
I'll start.
And one of the things that I don't think is talked about enough in this conversation is that making something taboo and wrong and just closing the door on communication, it makes it more exciting for one,
Mhm.
particularly when we talk about porn. If the only conversation is it's bad, it's wrong, you shouldn't do it, close the door, don't have any other discussion. That's not enough information for a young boy, what we're talking about, like a teenager, to navigate that terrain where there's feelings of pleasure and excitement and it's around him. But then it's just the idea of, oh, I can't talk about it. So there's the shutting of the door on communication. So now I'm just on the journey alone. And I'm going through these cycles of feeling really good from the thing, but then feeling really bad that I felt really good.
Yeah.
And so then it's like feeling good, feeling bad that I felt good, feeling good, feeling bad that I felt good. And just the way that that spirals across decades of a life and the monster that that becomes. And as we're saying, the isolation that it creates and the inability for me to talk to my partner about the things that I want, the things that I'm into, the things that I'm curious about. It's just like, having a tight thing around your throat because you've been doing that your whole life. That's what you learned.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And to many parents' credits, I don't think they have the language of how to do that. So I don't want to bash parents that
Totally.
that because I do think it does more damage than good to say no, stay away from that. Because what did I do as a teenager when my parents told me to stay away from something? I went towards it. And that's our individuation as children is we want to be individuals. So a lot of the things my parents told me not to do, I explored. Whereas if my parents just got curious and said, I don't know, I'll find out. And they could get curious and say, what did you learn? What do you think about it? And that's difficult if we do come from a history of the structure that watching sex on TV is inherently a bad thing to do. And it's detrimental and it's damaging and you're going to hell or whatever the messaging was. Which there's some extreme messaging around it, and then there's not so extreme that it's just not good for you. It's unhealthy. You should be focusing and applying your energies into other ways. But masturbation is normal. Everybody does it. Let's normalize talking about it. Having sex is normal. How can we normalize the conversation so our young people engage with it in a different way and appreciate it? I don't think we should push them away from something because then they get into it and they don't have any experience of it. That's where you get teen pregnancy and all these other things. So we could go down a rabbit hole with that conversation. And um, I do hear you in talking about the shame cycle of doing something I was taught was wrong, and I do it and I feel bad, and so shame begets more shame. And if we could free ourselves from that and say, okay, just what is my relationship with this? What is my relationship with alcohol? Is it taking me out of balance in my life? That's the surefire way structurally to realize if I have a problem or not.
Mm, mm,
Is it taking me out of balance in my life? Is porn causing me to be out of balance in my relationship, my primary relationship?
mm,
Is it taking up 2, 3 hours of my day?
mhm,
Probably taking me out of balance.
mhm,
And so if we can take some of the criticism and the intense um, categorizing these things as horrible out of it, people can really see what their relationship is with it. What are they getting out of it? Because we're all getting something.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
getting something out of relating with that. And okay, what if I didn't relate with that? What is it that I truly need?
Mm. Back to
What?
that perspective you shared earlier, which is like, I think it changes so much of it in the conversation of porn, which is what is this coming up from? We talked about it as a symptom earlier.
Yes,
And once again, not to say that uh, that there has to be some terrible thing that it's covering up, but it's the process is in the curiosity that shifts things. That it's
yes.
just like having the curiosity, once again, doing it from a neutral plane, because when I come from shame, when I come from wrongness, when I come from, all the information that's out there saying how terrible it is, if that's leading me into the action is probably not going to be a good action because that's the place it's coming from. But if I'm very neutrally looking at it with this kind of perspective of, okay, in what way is this serving me? And what am I trying to get here beyond what I think I'm trying to get here? Maybe I think I'm just trying to feel real good. I'm trying to get an orgasm. But to have that curiosity and like, what else might be there? What else might I want beyond the surface that I'm seeing?
Mhm.
And just that I think can shift how we're looking at it and what a young man or even an older man would discover.
Yeah, great points. And I think we have to clarify that the assumption is if let's say my relationship with porn is taking me out of balance, then it's important to look and see what's going on. Because I know many people who have a very healthy, functional relationship with pornography and watching sex. And they have a very healthy relationship with being in an open relationship and how they navigate trust and communication, polyamory. I do know those things are all bastardized and made to look horrible. And they offer so much growth, so much learning about myself when done in a healthy, functional, structured way where there's agreements, there's communication, there's vulnerability, it's ethical. So I think we have to really discern that, okay, is something taking me out of balance? Then it's important to see what's going on underneath the surface.
Which
I
is
just
it's
wanted to
a
say that. Mhm.
beautiful piece there because in that example, I love that you connected healthy and functional and what makes it those things. Agreements, boundaries, communication. It's done with
Mm.
intention. There's thought put into it,
Yeah.
structure that helps me to navigate it in a way that is going to be more balanced and in service to me and who else is involved. And that's a great thing to bring
Mhm.
in, which is another piece that we can just look at in our relationship to porn, which is, can I make some agreement? Is it possible for me to make an agreement with myself that I can stay true to?
Mhm.
Can I set a boundary?
Mhm.
Once again, curiosity, can I do these things?
Mhm.
If I can't do them, then most likely it has command over me. I don't have command over myself. And say, okay, once again, not from a place of shame or wrongness. This is a skill for me to develop that I can command my internal world in a way that it doesn't just override me, in the same way that I don't want to, me personally, I don't want to just have traffic make me angry and punch my steering wheel like and get upset. Like, okay, I have area for development. I can grow here. And same here with the relationship with porn is like, okay, how can I develop as a man by looking at my relationship with this thing? Not from a place because you should, not from a place of wrongness, not from any of these things, other than there's an opportunity here, most likely.
Mhm. That's beautiful. That's spectacular. Yeah, and I think only the person or the individual knows if that has control over them, if it's taking them out of balance, and what that entails. Hmm.
and bringing in, and once again, why I'm here and even why this podcast exists, why I'm having this conversation with you is to normalize the conversations, to
Yeah.
make more space for them so that there's less resistance to just say the thing. I have a community space this is the main focus, sexuality, and I cannot tell you how often men come in and they never say a thing. And it's like, this is what we're here, this is what we're here for, is we're in this private space to say these things that aren't, that we feel aren't accepted other places. But once again, it's like these repetitions of it being normalized to see it more and more, to put that information in the brain that goes, okay, other people are doing this. Maybe that means I can.
Yeah. Mhm. It made me think, I have something swirling in my mind talking about the balance in relationship with porn. If a man has to hide it
Mm,
from his partner,
mm,
anybody, I get it. We want to be private, but if that's an indication that there's something out of balance, there's a communication that needs to be had there, and it doesn't mean his partner just needs to accept it. It means they need to have a conversation and take the shame out of it and take uh, the mystery out of it. And why does this person not want them to engage with porn? So those are indications of, okay, where is something out of balance in my life? And that's what I work with couples is like, hey, I hear you don't want him to be watching porn. I hear that's a want. And that's a fundamental natural part of a man is his sexuality. It's what do we do with that? How do we use that to power ourselves and to fuel ourselves? And I love your idea of intentionality.
mm,
Why am I using porn to go masturbate? What's going on for me right now? Not to just be mindless and go do it, but to think for a minute, pause. Okay,
mm,
how do I want it right now? Am I feeling stressed?
mm.
Feeling lonely? Just a brief moment to uncover that and to see what's happening. Because there's nobody that has to go use it. It's a choice that we have. So being in greater relationship with why you're doing it is so important. But having those conversations with our partners and saying, look, this is something that I do. I don't want it to be shameful. I'm a man. If it's taking away from us, let's engage with this conversation and allow me to be who I want to be and relate with this um, external source of pleasure that I get because it's pleasure. Why are we not allowed to feel pleasure? But if it gets dirty and shameful, then I believe, yes, some things need to be addressed because there's nothing worse than doing something that we're hiding and feeling bad about after we do it. We got to sneak around and, oh, that's horrible. It's a horrible way to live. And eventually shit's going to blow up. You can't hide forever.
Yeah. I was, in a way I laugh, and it's not that it's just laughable. There's many more feelings to it, but it's the amount of adult men that are still in the behaviors of a teenager at home,
Mm-hmm.
it's when I leave mom and dad's house, there's some initiation in the conversation of sexuality that is looking at the behaviors of how I've treated sexuality with my parents and going, all right, an evolution needs to take place here as I move into adulthood. My ability to have conversations, my ability to talk about the things that I like and the reasons why I like them, my own awareness of my relationship to sexuality and why I move in the ways that I do and do the things that I do and bringing in that curiosity. That's part of maturity. That's
Yeah.
part of going from the teenager to the adult is having that sort of awareness of myself, knowing myself in that way, and the ability to communicate to other, which is a never-ending skill.
Oh my gosh. So true. So true. And that's why I'm involved in what I'm involved with and doing these modern day initiations for men because we have had that for eons, thousands of years. Men have been initiated into what it means to be a man in their culture or in a way that can be of service and in mission, and for men to be able to own who they are. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. Like you said, these are adults trapped in a boy's mentality because they haven't had that shakeup by other men coming into their life and saying, hey, I love you. I'm going to love you fiercely. And I'm going to challenge you. And I'm going to help you define what being a man means to you. Not what I believe it means, not what culture would have it mean, but what does it mean to you? How do you want to show up? What's your word mean to you? Those sorts of things. And I think you're absolutely right. And that lends itself to men not being able to own who they are and stand in their power and say, okay, I have a problem. I'm going to deal with it. Or I love this and this is who I am. You deal with it. And that's a beautiful place to be because maybe
Mm-hmm.
their partner is like, no, I don't want to deal with that. Okay. I love you and I bless you. This is who I am. And to be steadfast in that. And I think that's the thing with sexuality and what I want to teach
Mm.
in the world and what you and I have talked about, what I want to do moving forward is to teach people to have a healthy relationship with their sexuality, why they want what they want, that it's okay.
Mm.
Change the whole script around that let's just wipe the slate clean from all the programming and everything that we have and let people engage with their sexuality and pleasure and fantasy and what we as human beings are some of the only creatures that have access to is connecting physically for pleasure and and awaken and to enliven our senses and our energy. What a gift! What a fucking gift that many of us. It's so far. I think it's our deepest collective shadow.
Mm.
The word collective. It's our.
Yeah.
It really is. I believe it's our deepest collective shadow. That's why there's so much dysfunction around sexuality, is because we as individuals aren't willing to give ourselves permission to just explore. You know, if you look on the dating sites, it's fuck your poly, fuck your E&M, fuck your all this. It's like people are so programmed, and I'm not criticizing if that works for somebody, but to criticize other people is showing of who they are and what their beliefs are.
Mm.
If they said, I would rather not be in a poly relationship, I would rather not have ethical non-monogamy, I would rather not be a third, but thank you for the invitation. That
Yeah.
feels different than criticizing other people. So it shows me where our culture is, and I think we have a lot of work to do. But circling back to why I know the groups you and I are involved with are so important it gives these perspectives to men where they can feel liberated in their own skin and not trapped in it.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Because life is perspective, brother.
Mm.
It's all about perspective. I've had perspectives given to me that has blown my mind and changed my life. It is about action, but the perspective just gave me permission to explore different aspects of myself. And what a blessing that was.
Mm.
And so if anybody can take anything away from this conversation today, it's to give themselves permission to stumble through these conversations, not get it right, have the courage to keep going, not shut down if it gets tough with your partner, but to keep showing up with humility and realizing there's so much to learn. So much to learn, man.
Yeah, and it
Brings me
happens.
to tears to think about it because like that's the leader that I am. Because I don't have everything figured out, man. I don't have anything figured out. And if somebody wants to challenge me, I'm on for it. Bring it to my attention. But what I'm not going to do is close off my heart and hold people in a box or hold this in a box or say this is inherently horrible when there's so much to explore.
Mm.
And so I'm just super grateful for you and for the work that you do and inviting me on the show with you. And it's been a lot of fun, man. I just get a little bit emotional.
Yeah, man.
I'm really grateful for you and having you in my life. That's what's real.
Yeah,
Hmm.
brother. I appreciate you so much. And
Hmm.
yeah, half the excuse of having you on the podcast was just to spend an hour with you and dive into these deep conversations. And I look forward to seeing all the things, all the intentions you're holding and inspirations and so grateful for the way that you show up for men and grateful to have men in my life like you that I get to walk alongside of and have these conversations. So thank you for your time today and sharing with us. I'm going to put links in the description that you want me to share. If someone wants to connect with you, what's one of the best ways? What are some things that they might be able to do with you?
I'm on social media, Brenton Rueger. You can catch me on Facebook. I'm a very private man. I don't market much. I don't even have a website. Most of my work is word of mouth,
Cool.
and that's the way I operate. So you could share my email address. Somebody could reach out to me, but Facebook is a good way, or Instagram is a decent way to reach out to me
Cool. I'll
and
share those links.
people to reach out, and we can have a conversation and see if it's a good fit to work together. I would love that.
Beautiful. I'll
But
share
also
that.
men who are interested in the Mankind Project or men's groups. There's groups around the country that I can connect men with, and
Hmm.
all 50 states, right? I mean, so you don't have to be. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, so men can be anywhere, and just feel free to reach out to me. I want to support men and connecting with other like-minded and not like-minded men, so we can grow together. Hmm.
Amen to that.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much, Brenton. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Many more episodes to come. Keep the conversation rolling. We'll be back for more.
Right.